Thanks for joining me. I hope everyone's had a fantastic Christmas and New Year's. Today on Who Are Environmental Health Officers, I'm speaking with Aaron, an EHO working in Indigenous communities. How long have you been an EHO?
13 years. I graduated in 2006 and then I started in 2007.
Where are you working and what's your role?
So Central Australia, you're based in Alice Springs, but then you have communities spread across the Barkly region. So there's 3 remote council areas. I think a lot of EHOs, if they have the opportunity to work remotely, they would prefer it than a lot of the urban work a lot of EHOs do. I think it's just that overcoming that fear of moving so far from home and in such a different environment.
Why do you think environmental health is important?
In the Indigenous space, it's so important because Indigenous people are a vulnerable population per se. They don't have equality like we do. They have very, very poor social determinants of health. They have English as a second language in most of those communities. It provides this opportunity to look at the critical health infrastructure, the social determinants of health, and to, protect those aspects.
How would you describe environmental health to someone who doesn't know what it is?
And environmental health really looks at the public health. So we could be dealing with water, sewerage, waste management, communicable disease, food, less so accommodation, things, and plus other aspects like even recreational water. So anything that affects public health, in a remote environment. Outbreaks like salmonella outbreaks. It's another aspect, potable water. So it's quite broad.
Were you always attracted to the profession?
I had a friend who was studying environmental health. Then I went to an open day in 2004, did it, and then I did work experience with council, and I wasn't really into it. But I had a friend of mine did work experience with someone from Central Australia. So he used to tell us all these stories about working in remote communities. I went, oh, that sounds awesome. And then there was an advertisement at uni and I went for it and got it just in my last year of uni.
Describe a typical week.
One day you could be responding to a cyanobacteria outbreak on 3 remote dams. The next day you could be working with several teams on trachoma, critical health infrastructure installation. The next day you could be working on an overflowing settling pond in a community that's just flooded the outskirts of a community, and the day after that you could be working on a housing for health project. So, and then then in between that you've got all your typical food related stuff. So it's just so varied. And then you might be there might have been a salmonella outbreak on a remote mine, so you've got to drive out there, do the investigation, do all the sampling and stuff like that. It's pretty interesting.
What are some projects that you've been involved with?
We got funding toward it 90-something houses in an area. All 90 houses had endemic plumbing failure. They had plumbing going nowhere. In some instances, some people's taps hadn't worked for years, lots of failing septic systems, sewage, puddles of sewage outside the houses had flooded through the houses. And, we were able to get $500,000 invested in that area, and then years later they still don't have those issues in that area. So it's this opportunity where children weren't able to shower because they didn't have access to plumbing, and they had sewage flowing through the house and outside the house, to actually being able to shower and not being exposed to those pollutants. It's quite rewarding. There is that opportunity to make a difference, and that's just one project.
What are some of the challenges that you face?
The biggest challenge is the expansive, harsh environments and the limited scope of funding, which is and the huge competition for that funding. Can't just go into a community and just do what you think. You need to go and speak to the local community leaders. There needs to be a process of community development and cultural respect and cultural inclusivity. It's not about, we're not doing this to you, we're doing this with you.
What do you love most about being an EHO?
If you can study environmental health and then go on and do a master's in other areas. So it's so broad. It's everything, isn't it? It's biological, it's physical, it's chemical. But depending on where your profession lays, it's this opportunity to affect public health. So you can really broadly affect public health through health promotion and public health initiatives, or you can really narrow in on a profession. You could be working with soil or food or wastewater.
What's something that you know now that you wish you had have known at the beginning of your career?
I think those stepping stones, if you start in a particular space, some areas are harder than other areas to access, depending on your experience. So just if you're starting off in the environmental health profession, know where you want to end up. Know if you want to specialize in food, start there. But if you want to specialize in another area, try and start there as your training there, cadetship or something like that. There's some aspects that are harder to move into with time if you haven't gained the experience in those fields.
What advice would you give to someone wanting to become an EHO?
Don't be afraid to seek help from EHOs, because it's a very supportive, the EH profession, I guess in a nutshell, is a very supportive profession. So, if you have a goal, you'll get there. Just don't be afraid to access that support that's surrounding you from, more experienced officers.
Thank you for your time today, Aaron, and sharing your experience in Indigenous communities.
So a lot of really switched on environmental health officers coming out of uni, really passionate, really hungry, and with the right amount of guidance and just those, hitting those, not rushing it, but hitting those stepping stones appropriately, people generally find the right answer eventually. All right, nice to chat with you. Good luck.
To see more in this Who Are Environmental Health Officers video series, go to the EHA YouTube channel and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.